Kyle Crabbs and Jordan Reid of the Draft Network. And Jordan, you're a quarterback, so you're fairly familiar with the offensive backfield. We're going to talk about the other back in the backfield, the running back position here today. And the running back landscape for the 2021 NFL Draft took a pretty drastic shift with the news came through that Penn State's Journey Brown was going to have to retire from football due to a heart condition. And obviously his long-term well-being and future and happiness, those things all take precedent over the football field. But as we think about the remainder of the 2021 running back class, the perceptions that we had of it before the season when Journey Brown was going to be one of those highly coveted guys, and now looking at who some of those tier 2 guys might be, who are some names that kind of come to the front of your mind based on the performance we've seen thus far in the season?
Yeah, so just starting out in that 1A tier or that 1A bucket, as you like to call it. I love you using that term just because I think it's so perfect when just talking about differentiating some of these running backs. Everybody knows that the top 2 guys are whichever mixture, either way that you want to interchange them, is Travis Etienne, the running back from Clemson, and then Najee Harris, the running back from Alabama. But after that, there's kind of a precipitous drop-off, and it just depends on which type or which flavor that you like as far as a running back. And then I think the third guy that I would put there right now, even though there wasn't a lot of buzz about him coming into the year, was Javonte Williams, the running back from North Carolina. And he's a part of a tandem that I think is the best in the country with him and Michael Carter, a player that we will get into here in a second as well. But both of those guys are extremely talented. I think the one trait that really stands out about Javonte Williams is just his contact balance and ability to break tackles. I think it was one game earlier this year where he had like 16 broken tackles, which is just phenomenal. And then he had 4 first-half touchdowns against Duke a week ago. So that just goes to show you just the type of playmaking ability that he does have. And I like that he can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. And that tandem is really special. Carter's a really good player as well, even though he's not quite as twitchy as far as explosive plays down the field as Williams. I think he definitely brings a really formidable type of 1B rusher to a committee.
Yeah, so Williams, I think he's averaging something like 15 yards per catch this season too. So the production, like you mentioned, in the pass catching game, if you're looking for a guy with some juice, with some contact balance, who can break tackles, you're looking for the discount version of the same type of player that Travis Etienne is. I think Javonte Williams brings some of the same components to his game, but you're not going to have to spend that top 20, top 25 pick potentially to land him. Carter, as you mentioned, the other half of this North Carolina backfield, these 2 guys have combined for over 1,900 yards and over 20 touchdowns in 7 games this season. So they are really, really making some noise. But Jordan, I would be remiss if we're talking about running backs to not talk about my guy, Mohamed Ibrahim from Minnesota. This dude was really impressive. He in 3 games is already within 14 carries of his total workload from the entirety of the 2019 season. So he's become a bell cow and a staple for the Minnesota offense through the first 3 games of the season. He's averaging over 200 rushing yards a game. He's got 10 rushing touchdowns. Another guy with really good contact balance. He's dense. You wish he had a little bit more burst when he gets onto that second level and it's open for him to break some pursuit angles and really break more long home run hitting plays. But he runs with instincts. He runs with contact balance. He runs with really patient feet. I like the way that he keeps himself collected so that he can cut when lanes make themselves available to him. So he would be a name who maybe isn't quite as athletically gifted as the North Carolina kids, but the rushing instincts that he showcases for teams that want to run some inside zone type stuff, he would be a fit for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we kind of have to be careful when these guys don't have a bunch of receiving production. And this is where I think you really have to dive into the tape. And are they really asked to be doing that? And I think that's the biggest question we have to ask with Mohamed Ibrahim is that I don't think we should unfairly knock him for saying that he doesn't have the receiving production. Maybe he's just not being asked to do that. And it's a James Robinson situation of where he runs thousands of yards, but they just didn't involve him in the passing game, even though he's capable of doing so. So I think you hit the nail on the head there as far as the type of player that he is, and seeing a guy like James Robinson, who I think has a very similar skill set and a similar type of body build as well. I think he's even more dense than what Robinson does bring to the fold. So with Ibrahim, I loved him against Maryland. That first half against Maryland, that Friday night game, that's really where I said, man, I got to dive deeper into this guy's tape just because he's a pinball. That's what you love about him. Everybody just bounces off of him. He has that contact balance that you're looking for. And then he's just a between the tackles banger, but he also can give you some versatility on that outside zone type of schemes on the perimeter as well. So I'm a big fan of Ibrahim. And if you're looking for a discount version, maybe midday 2 or late day 2 or early day 3, I think he would be a really nice pick in the committee.
Now, another name that was a little higher up at the beginning of the season throughout the course of the summer that is worth mentioning here, he's opted out for the rest of the season. It's Mississippi State's Collin Hill. And you mentioned not really knowing what the receiving resume was going to be for Mohamed Ibrahim because he hasn't been asked to do it at Minnesota. Well, that was really all Kylin Hill was asked to do this year at Mississippi State with Mike Leach's air raid offense. Do you think that helped him? Because you look at the rushing style and the offense, the rushing offense that they had with Leach, and it's almost like worthless tape for him versus what he put on display in 2019.
Yeah, and I think this was one of the more interesting fits as far as just talking about prospect and then the scheme coming into the year. Everybody knows that Mike Leach likes to throw the ball around the yard 70-plus times a game. We saw it against LSU where Costello was just tossing it all over that defense. But Collin Hill just wasn't very involved as far as in the running game. And I think this is a situation of where you have to dive into the tape from last year. I think that was a much better scheme fit for him.
Mm-hmm.
You saw him running between the tackles, running on the perimeter, and then you saw him give some production out of the backfield as well as a pass catcher. So I think this is a situation, like you said, you just kind of have to burn the tape from this year just because we know he kind of was 1 foot in, 1 foot out this year. He wasn't really involved in the passing game. And it's kind of hard to blame him, or he wasn't really involved in running game, I should say. It's kind of hard to blame him, especially with the team that's throwing the ball around so much. You get tired of pass protecting and laying your body out on the line. You're not reaping the benefits from it as well. So with Collin Hill, he's a player I think is very similar to Gio Bernard coming into the league as far as that rocked up build. Very similar. He's not quite as springy or as bursty as Gio Bernard coming into the league. It doesn't give you the special teams value either, but just putting into the mind frame of the body type and then the type of back he can be as far as that 1B type of running back in a committee. That is really the complement to a bell cow. I think he definitely could be that.
Running back position, one of the positions that is undergoing the biggest facelift thus far based on the performance of the players. So make sure you swing over to thedraftnetwork.com to keep up with all the latest and greatest on the NFL, college football, and the NFL draft.